Yo! With Kagurabachi's latest arc continuing its momentum and showing no signs of slowing down, tons of fans have gotten their power scaling minds to work on just how strong these titans of the Kagurabachi universe truly are. Now, I have made a video previously on how the main protagonist Chihiro would perform in the world of JJK, and I was thinking of how we could jump back into another supposed versus situation. Now, originally I was considering making this video primarily about Hirohiko, but then I realized that my channel is on a very steady decline, and I should probably make something that people would be more inclined to, give a shit about, so. Today we will be looking at Samura, the blind legend that aided in the defense of Japan during the horrific Seitei War and wielder of the enchanted blade Tobimune, and just how he would measure up in the world of Jujutsu Kaisen. Make sure y'all leave a like, subscribe for more videos like this, and without further ado, let's go ahead and let's jump on it. Samura is an elite swordsman well renowned in the Kagurabachi universe for his expertise in the EI white purity style, as well as having extremely precise and deadly swordsmanship while being blind. The EI white purity style is an extremely unconventional sword drawing technique in which an individual stores up spirit energy in their sheath and releases it in an extremely swift burst of speed. The basis of the technique is speed over power, meaning that raw strength is not enough to give you an edge in a fight. Quote, uniquely under the style, a sword fighter wields their katana in a reverse grip with the blade facing the wrist, opposite to standard grips where the metacarpals are aligned with the blade's edge. Due to the non-standard grip, a sword fighter must rotate the blade 180 degrees after drawing it. This is a very unorthodox approach to sword fighting, as a reverse grip such as this and having to maintain the momentum. And besides its inventor, only 2 people have been actually certified to wield the technique. The 2 that have been on paper to actually have mastered the technique are Seiichi Samura and Yoji Udaha. The protagonist of Kagurabachi, Chihiro, had an incredibly difficult time applying this technique to his own sword skills. Now, Chihiro, as the son of a blacksmith, has incredible perception when it comes to finite details and analysis. Pay no attention to the fact that his eyes are red, as well as his father's. While Chihiro has the legally distinct not Sharingan, it even took him a multitude of attempts to actually execute the technique accurately. It wasn't until within a fraction of a second from witnessing Samura's daughter Yuri up close and watching how her fingers were placed in order to pull it off is when he actually managed to get it right. Samura performs this technique almost effortlessly, and to those that are unfamiliar with the technique, its speed is almost inconceivable. Chihiro, in a failed attempt to use this technique properly, was still able to catch up to Kaguri, who had a sizable lead on him in the street and was attempting to chase after Usumi, who was on a motorbike. Now, this tells me that Kaguri was so confident in his speed on foot that he thought that he could catch up to someone on a motorbike. And while he did have a sizable lead on Chihiro, Chihiro was able to catch up to Kaguri in an instant with an incomplete version of the EI white purity style. Samura, during the raid on the temple, threw a cigarette at a thug, and before the thug could grab it from in front of his face, Samura had already split his skull into 4 pieces. See, this is how I knew Samura was the real deal, man. He had nothing but just raw, unadulterated aura. He did this nigga like the laser hallway in the Resident Evil movie, man. Nasty work. Samura actually squared off against Udaha in a duel after he told him what his plan was, and actually no-diffed the only other certified user of the technique without buffing himself with Tobimune. While yes, do keep in mind that Samura trained Udaha, this is still a tremendous feat in and of itself. Samura weaves this technique into his regular swordplay effortlessly. As Samura is blind, his main method of maneuvering in fights is sound. And yes, go ahead and get your Daredevil jokes out now while you can, because this has totally not been done before. It's super original. During battle, Samura will slam the hilt of his katana into the sheath of his weapon, mirroring echolocation so he can get a 360 view of his surroundings. Smell and touch go along with his heightened hearing as well, which makes him a very lethal opponent in battle, as he has no open weak spots, presumably. The biggest direct counter to Samura is to be able to mask your presence, such as the shinobi of the Masumi, Samura's former bodyguards. Samura by himself is an extremely competent duelist, but when it comes to Tobimune, he becomes something else entirely. Samura's enchanted blade bonded to his soul currently is Tobimune. Tobimune is one of 7 enchanted blades that was forged by Kunishige Rokuhira, and upon calling its name, black feathers spawn from the blade and surround either the wielder or the surrounding area. By the way, as the raid on the temple was ramping up and the monks and the Masumi were getting overwhelmed with just how many bodies were coming at them, Samura managed to clear out that shit within seconds, my boy. Now, when Crow is activated, it allows Samura to switch places with any of the feathers that spawn out of Tobimune and in its sheath. This allows Samura to have essentially limited teleportation within the area, similar to Minato's marked kunai from Naruto. Now, at the moment of this recording, just how many feathers Tobimune spawns is unknown, but just from looking at this picture, it's a lot. Samura could also use his spirit energy and mold the feathers to make giant wings that allow him to fly for the sole reason of aura farming and nothing else. Dog, this man was moving like Michelangelo himself drew him in that studio. Also, I want you to know that Samura did not have to roll up on Iori, Chihiro, and Hirohiko like this at all. He could have just let the feathers hit the ground and instantly appeared that way, but nah, he had to flex in front of his daughter and remind her that her daddy is still him. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you gotta pop out and show niggas. Now, arguably, Tobimune's scariest ability is Owl. Owl summons a big fucking owl in the sky. Made up of the user's spirit energy, and allows them to cover a specific area and track or identify sources of spirit energy. Now, its range is unknown, but at one point the range of Owl was increased to all of Japan, and it was on over 3 days non-stop before Samura actually called it off once Chihiro and Hirohiko were located. The larger the range of Owl is cast, diminishing returns begin to occur. As the range increases, larger and larger amounts of spirit energy are required to set off Owl. So, for example, if Owl was only set to cover a city block, a baby spirit energy would be easily trackable. But if it were to cover an entire nation, such as Japan, only high energy items / individuals will be detected. Chihiro and Hirohiko had to go through the past 20 chapters or so under the assumption that as soon as they draw their enchanted blades, this man would pop in like a FNAF jump scare and clap both of them. The next ability in Tobimune's repertoire is Suzaku, in which Tobimune's feathers ignite and summon flames on the wielder's wounds and heal the wielder, as well as damaging anybody that is touching the feathers. This extends to fatal wounds as well, as Samura was caught in an illusion by Kumayuri and was cut off guard with 7 katana piercing through his body, and in an instant cast Suzaku to reverse the damage that was done to him, with Samura saying that wounds are the fuel of this flame. Now, the flames that burn those who come into contact with them do not burn forever like Amaterasu. One very interesting thing that Suzaku can do is that can also repair inanimate objects as well, such as the very hotel that Kumayuri was destroying and warping. This has been labeled Eternal Suzaku by some fans, and it appears to work very similar to Crazy Diamond from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Chihiro himself is trying to understand the limits of Suzaku and Samura's spirit energy, because according to him, he should have depleted his spirit energy very long ago, as Suzaku cannot be used indefinitely on paper. One small thing is that sound and smell are both Samura's biggest strength as well as weaknesses. While Samura has very acute senses due to his lack of sight, if they are to such an extreme degree like fireworks or explosions in a closed space, he cannot operate at 100%. With all these things at his disposal, our boy Samura is known to be a top threat to any swordsman that comes his way, and so now the question arises, how would he fare in the world of Jujutsu Kaisen? Before we move on to the next section of the video, if you haven't left a like on the video and subscribed yet, what's wrong with you? In the world of Jujutsu Kaisen, curses and sorcerers are ranked by 5 different grades. Grades 4, which is your bottom of the barrel and meant for new students to sorcery. Maki Zenin is the only known grade 4, but it was only due to the Zenin family's misogyny, as early on she easily could have been grade 2 or 3. Grade 3 is an average rank for Jujutsu sorcerers and is for students that show promise in their techniques, such as Mai and Nobara. Grade 2 is a step above that, with these sorcerers showing to be far from weak, and it means that they show immense promise, such as Megami. Grade 1s are what the majority of sorcerers in the Jujutsu world are. Most teachers hold this rank, and this is the gold standard of what all sorcerers should strive to be. This is the highest rank you can get through natural progression of your techniques. Todo, Meme, Nanami, as well as Kusakabe hold this rank. Whenever you see a sorcerer that could be vaguely described as strong, they are more than likely a grade 1. Moving forward from this, then you have special grades. Special grades are, for lack of a better term, some fucking freaks. Special grade is a rank for anomalies within the Jujutsu world, and Kenjaku has described special grade sorcerers as having the ability to take down a country by themselves. Now, is this entirely accurate? But special grade sorcerers, regardless, are on a totally different level compared to what the norm is. Gojo, Geto, Yuki, Yuta, my glorious King Sukuna are all special grades. Now, you do have your other grades, like special grades 1, such as Naoya Naoya and Nobito, semi-grade 1, but for the purpose of this video, we'll only be looking at the 5 ranks and seeing how Samura compares and how he'd perform in the world of Jujutsu Kaisen. I want to immediately get it out of the way that not all curses and sorcerers between the ranks are built the same, especially amongst the special grades. They are not all the same strength level. To say that Volume 0 Yuta is on the same level as Sukuna is quite frankly foolish, and to say that he could take down an entire nation by himself is debatable, most likely due to his age and experience as a sorcerer, and Yuta in Sendai had a bit of trouble trying to win a 3-way battle with sorcerers who are most likely grade 1 or higher. Samura himself is a powerhouse in the Kagurabachi verse, and not much changes when we go up to the world of Jujutsu Kaisen, surprise to nobody. Samura has shown off tremendous feats of speed throughout his multiple showings in Kagurabachi, and JJK, generally speaking, is a bit on the slower side when it comes to power scaling. While some characters like Gojo and Todo have teleportation on their side, and someone like Naoya in his curse form is stated to be going at Mach 3, there are tons and tons of speed feats within the Jujutsu world. Now, while yes, some may argue that Sukuna is FTL because he ran up Jacob's ladder while it was going off, JJK isn't really super consistent with speed feats. Now, this is opposed to Kagurabachi, where the first 20 chapters, these characters are already pretty cracked, with Sojo and Chihiro going at lightning speed. Samura with the EI White Purity style in the Jujutsu world is safely above your sorcerers, pre-awakened Maki and Nabara with simple speed alone in a 1v1, there's no doubt. Now, how does Samura measure up against our local simple domain merchant, Kusakabe? Kusakabe is a very interesting case in that Kusakabe is an incredibly capable swordsman in his own right, with no innate technique, but is still able to hang with grade 1s. Kusakabe's biggest defensive tool besides simple domain is Evening Moon sword drawing, in which Kusakabe activates a simple domain around himself and all curse techniques inside are slightly weakened. When an attack comes towards Kusakabe, he can automatically intercept it with his katana, such as Sukuna slashes. In my personal opinion, this is Kusakabe's biggest strength against Samura if he were to get into a 1v1 scenario against him. Tobimune doesn't have much in the area of long-range attacks, so hypothetically, if Kusakabe activated EMSD against Samura while he used Crow to teleport between the feathers, he should be okay. EMSD can be used offensively and attack the target with the furious slashes, but on an opponent like Sukuna, it offers nothing just short of a tickle. Now, the biggest problem is that without this active, Kusakabe just doesn't have the gas to take on Samura, and I'm sorry to say it. Samura was able to keep Owl up for days on end, fight Kumayuri that was implementing its own quasi-domain, and keep up Suzaku's regeneration in preparation for another fight with Chihiro at the same time. Samura's spear energy reserves are absolutely massive, and whatever healing loop that he has going with Suzaku is nothing short of monstrous. Not to say that Kusakabe wouldn't give it his best effort, but curse energy reinforcement on your own body might not be able to go against much with an individual who tried to slice 2 people in half at the same time and inadvertently cut the surrounding building in half horizontally. Yeah, Kusakabe deflected a Uzumaki with the simple domain, but he can't keep it up forever, unfortunately. Now, moving on from this, I want to get a couple things out of the way before we move on. Samura is clearing out most of the cast at the beginning of Jujutsu Kaisen with very little effort. Panda's no issue, nor is Nobara, early Megami without Mahoraga, Yuji, you get it. Now, Todo might offer some resistance, but quite frankly, Todo works best in a support role, as he really doesn't have the necessary firepower in his arsenal to do significant damage to higher threat targets. Same thing with someone like Kento Nanami. Nanami's 7-3 sorcery could potentially be a good, useful counter to Samura's sheer strength, but the problem lies in actually catching Samura at that point, with Crow acting as makeshift teleportation. Hell, besides Crow, White Purity style just has ludicrous speed that Nanami himself has never really been shown to demonstrate. Truth be told, I don't think that there's a grade 1 that could take down Samura in a fight. If you pay attention in Jujutsu Kaisen, one of the biggest defining traits of a true special grade is the use of reverse curse technique. Reverse curse technique is in which you heal yourself, but not like something like Hakari's automatic healing and immortality, which come with his domain expansion. It took Gojo a very close call with death to actually understand it and implement it. It takes someone from a nuisance or a respectable opponent to a legitimate threat if they were to have reverse curse technique. And we know that Samura does have something akin to reverse curse technique in his bag. For example, Yuji would have crushed Mahito with RCT in Shibuya, but since he only got it at the end of the series, it made for higher stakes whenever he accumulated damage from Choso as well as Mahito. Being able to heal yourself mid-battle is extremely important in the world of Jujutsu Kaisen, and it's seen as some of the top tier's bread and butter, especially considering domain shenanigans as well as an attempt to heal your own brain. Which leads us to our next line of thinking. Is Samura a special grade threat? That is an unabashed and unbiased yes. But as we now know more than ever, not all special grades are built equal. How does Samura compare to the other special grades in JJK? Let's find out and take a look. Samura versus Yuki. Samura vs. Yuki is a bit of a weird one. Yuki seemed to be one of the most underwhelming special grade sorcerers in terms of sheer destructive prowess. She's top tier, obviously. She broke through one of Kenjaku's strongest summons with one attack, and he found her extremely bothersome to fight, as he was just as wary of her domain as she was of his. That was until he figured out that if she thought she had even the slightest advantage in a domain battle, she would have just done it to get an edge over him off rip. She kept up constant pressure along with Choso to keep his reverse curse technique and domain on cooldown, and tried their best to avoid his gravity curse technique, but to no avail, unfortunately. Now, Yuki herself brings raw strength, insane durability, and a domain with unknown effects at her disposal. She's a close-range bruiser. We know that she has the capability to turn herself into a black hole as a last-ditch suicide attempt, but it's impractical to think that she would just be willing to do this in every single fight. Well, yes, I agree that this fight is over the second Yuki gets her hands on Samura, as she could crush his skull or just completely compress his body with mass. I'm not entirely sure she'd be able to catch him. Also, keep in mind, this is completely speculatory on how Samura's regeneration works. We have yet to see just how intense it truly is. Now, my running theory is that your brain is still needed to use any type of sorcery, and if your brain is damaged in any way, it's going to hamper what happens. We know that with Hakuri in one of the latest chapters of Kagurabachi, the Tobimune actually had to do brain surgery on the sorcery parts of his brain in order to obviously keep his techniques alive. So I'm assuming something similar is happening with Samura. I'm assuming if his actual brain takes damage, he's dead. Samura was impaled with over 6 katanas through his body when Hirohiko got the drop on him, but from what I can see, his head is intact and unharmed, and there's clearly a katana through his heart, so I'm going to assume, again, that the brain is necessary for popping all abilities in Kagurabachi. But Crow is an incredibly terrifying ability to fight someone with in a 1v1 scenario, and we know that Samura so far has not been caught in a battle of pure speed when it comes to the EIY purity style. Now, unless Chihiro puts his not Sharingan to work and catches him slipping, so unfortunately Samura might just be too fast for Yuki with Crow at his disposal. But again, the moment Yuki gets her hands on him, this battle's finished. Moving on. Samura vs. Yuta is an extremely fascinating 1v1 to think about. Yuta rarely fights solo, as Rika perpetually stays by his side. Yuta himself is a walking Swiss army knife, as there isn't anything that he isn't particularly bad at. His curse energy output is actually more than Gojo's, but he lacks the finesse to be able to be on his level. Yuta is quite the powerhouse in the world of Jujutsu Kaisen, with an undisclosed amount of curse techniques at his disposal. Within his domain, he's able to pick up a seemingly endless field of katanas in the field that represent a curse technique, and these are techniques that he has acquired and allows for free use. Yuta so far has displayed use of cursed speech, the use of Shikigami using his hair, Udo's sky manipulation, thin icebreaker, his own innate sorcery of copy, Jacob's ladder, G War Staff, Charles' ability, Sukuna's shrine, Kenjaku's brain transplant, along with all of Gojo's abilities to limiting degrees of effectiveness, along with unlimited void and reverse curse technique. This kid is a monster, and for the sake of this discussion, we'll be looking at Yuta before the Shinjuku Showdown. So essentially everything except Jacob's ladder on. Samura would have an extremely difficult time with Yuta, as curse speech is a real pain to deal with, especially on an individual with extremely high physical and curse energy resistance. An example being when curse speech was used on Hanami momentarily, but absolutely devastated Inamaki's throat. Even on Sukuna, it was able to work, albeit momentarily and extremely quickly, as opposed to some lower level curses in which Yuta told them to die and they simultaneously exploded. Rika is known as the Queen of Curses, with an extremely immense amount of curse energy and can change her shape at will. Once she appeared in Shinjuku, she appeared to be just a bit bigger than she was when she first fully manifested from the school building on Yuta's first mission. When fighting Yuta, you are never truly fighting a 1v1, and Rika would be a very helpful asset in which to prevent a flank from someone like Samura. Before Samura would be able to call out Tobimune's name and activate any of its abilities, such as Suzaku, Yuta could use his cursed speech and end him there. It is well within the realm of possibility, but if you suppose that Samura is able to have a bit of prep time and actually activate Suzaku or Crow before this, we might have a much more of an interesting fight on our hands. Add in Charles' ability of limited foresight that Yuta could potentially activate as well. I don't see this going well for Samura at all. Also, I want you to understand that it's not like Samura's wings would help him much in this scenario as well, considering that with Udo's sky manipulation, Yuta can basically stand on the sky and fly as well. Now, do I think that Samura would get caught by the love beam that Yuta and Rika have? Well, no, he'd probably just get out of the way. But yes, if he were to get hit by it, he would most likely be atomized. Yuta is no slouch in traditional hand-to-hand combat either, and has been shown to be adept at swordplay to a limited degree. Also, not to mention that Yuta could hypothetically use that megaphone he has conjured before and use cursed speech to blow Samura's eardrums out. It don't look too good for our boy Samura, man. I'm just gonna tell you that. Yuta definitely takes this one. Now on to kenjaku. I don't know how to tell you this, big brother, but it don't look too good for our boy Samura here neither. While yes, Samura has speed and agility with regenerative properties, one of the biggest things that puts Samura at a disadvantage is the lack of ranged options. Tobimune is still a katana at the end of the day. It isn't like N10 where it can launch long-range slashes. Kenjaku's gravity manipulation would neuter Samura's ability, which is his biggest strength. While Crow's teleportation could help him evade a bit more, his bag simply isn't deep enough. Kenjaku's experience coupled with his open domain that we still have no idea what it does is extremely scary to deal with, as well as a slew of barrier techniques with one of the most cunning minds in the world of Jujutsu and reverse curse technique. I genuinely don't see a way that Samura could take it home with kenjaku. Now what about my nephew? End of series Yuji. Yuji has immense physical strength and durability with reverse curse technique, as well as simple domain with the added ability of shrine in his arsenal by the end of the series. Also, don't forget blood manipulation. Now it isn't so clear cut. Yuji would 100% have difficulty with Crow's teleportation between the feathers of Tobimune, as well as being a bit distracted with the flames produced by Suzaku, so he would have to focus a bit on RCT to heal. But a major issue that Yuji has is that he does not have the ability to throw slashes with dismantle like Sukuna, only cleave with physical contact. Yuji does have a special property in which he can interact with one soul and do damage as well, such as his domain, which allows him to land soul damaging dismantles without the need for physical contact. Now this would prove to be deadly for Samura. Now soul damage in Jujutsu Kaisen cannot be healed, and so it would not be illogical to say that the same would be for Kagurabachi. Suzaku only applies for physical regeneration, not an abstract concept such as one's soul. This will put Yuji in a much better position and put long-lasting damage on Samura and hopefully take him down. With Yuji's domain, this is a secured victory, hands down. But without it, I don't think Yuji takes it, unfortunately. Now, with my glorious king, it's been a minute for some glaze, y'all, but I'm here for it. Sukuna has unparalleled physical strength as well as curse energy reserves. His domain expansion is arguably the second strongest in the series, with the sure hit of the slashes being unavoidable when caught within the domain, making Crow's teleportation null and void. Sukuna was seemingly able to adjust to being jumped by two individuals with teleportation at the tail end of Shinjuku. Sukuna even outright states that it's practically impossible to get used to a full strength boogie woogie assault when they're going at 50 switches a second. My N word, ain't nobody surviving that blender realistically, ordinarily, but Sukuna did. Until he got caught within a trick. You know what I'm saying. Sukuna's domain is really the deciding factor when it comes to this fight, but even when it comes to the raw power of strikes, Sukuna with dismantle and cleave is head and tails above the sheer power that Tobimune can put out. Also, Furnace most likely would just atomize Samura with its sheer concussive force as well. Sukuna just has way too many hacks in his bag, and in terms of hand-to-hand combat, especially in his Heian era form at full power, he would smoke Samura in close range, or just outright eat the slashes like he did with Kusakabe. Overall, Samura cannot touch my glorious king Sukuna to no fault of his own. Moving on to Gojo. Yeah, hell nah. Samura's lack of range options is a very large issue when it comes to dealing with the blue-eyed twink, and considering that Samura has zero ways of getting through infinity as well. Getting caught in Gojo's domain would result in instant brain death for Samura. Yeah, it ain't happening, partner. Gojo does have reverse curse technique in his bag as well, but it wouldn't really be necessary for Samura, so yeah, it's quick work for him, unfortunately. And yes, would it be fair to call Samura a Maharaga victim because it's just sword TM? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Samura is an incredibly lethal threat in the world of Jujutsu Kaisen, and while I certainly would not put him as low as grade 2 and below, I do feel that he fits the qualifications to go in the special grade tier, but unfortunately lacks the firepower and complicated techniques to hang with the top tiers. Now again, this is all just for the sake of entertainment and fun. Please do not take this seriously when it comes to power scaling, but let me know down in the comments below what you guys think and how Samura would fare in the world of Jujutsu Kaisen when it comes to dealing with special grades and pretty much all of your top tiers. Let me know down in the comments below. I'm very curious. Anyways, it's me, boy Daffy, guys. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this video. Please make sure you leave a like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Y'all make sure you take care of yourselves, guys, and have a good one.